your big Hollywood sunglasses and light the torch, because it's cellar time. Welcome to the Crack Cellar. As the prophecy was once abandoned in a rain-soaked Walmart parking lot, I'm Two-Spirit Penguin Daniel.
And I'm Gin and Juice Nickels.
And today, broadcaster, we have some startling news that'll shake you to your core. Have you ever heard of a game called KOTOR, broadcaster Nickels?
There's no KOTOR anymore, wizard.
It's being resurrected by a dark necromancer known as Sam Maggs, who has such awesome opinions as The Last Jedi is the best Star Wars movie ever made, and I'm not a fan of KOTOR. Those are two direct quotes from the person now in charge of remaking KOTOR.
Yeah. Not surprised. Seems par for the course.
So, where are we going to go from here? I'd say Revan's probably going to have a pink lightsaber instead of purple.
Revan's a female now.
The Force is female, so yeah, of course Revan's going to be gender swapped. What do you think? I'm thinking maybe HK-47 is going to become...
Xbot 43.
Yeah, he's going to become like an Antifa robot, and he'll just like scream like random Antifa slogans, like fuck fascists and all that bullshit. Bastila Shan. I'm guessing Bastila Shan is going to just be like, just like a
no.
Yeah, you know where this is going. Juhani, there's the real canary in the coal mine. God knows what they're going to do to Juhani, because she was already kind of like an SJWE kind of character even back in the day.
She's going to be a strong Somali Jedi.
Yeah. Dark times, broadcaster Nickels. They've ruined almost my entire childhood and adolescence at this point, and I thought maybe they'd move on and leave the 5% left untouched. But no, they're going for 100% clear, broadcaster Nickels.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you one of two things is going to happen. Rather, this chick is making a KOTOR, quotation marks, light game. And this is nowhere near the scale of which we remember. And they're just using the terms KOTOR remake to gain hype. And this is going to be like a $15 indie game style shit, with cheesy graphics.
I hope that's the case. That would actually make me feel better.
Or. And this is the darkest timeline, which most likely will play out. It is real. And, it won't sell at all. And the company... or the studio that got the privilege to make a Star Wars title, which they probably thought was the biggest opportunity of their lives, is going to dissolve and never make another game again. And the company that's using them, which I'm guessing is Star Wars title, so I'm guessing it's what? EA or Activision? Who's making this? Who's making this? Who's producing it?
It's EA.
EA, that's okay.
Yeah, it's EA. EA still has the exclusive rights for Star Wars games, unfortunately.
Yeah, so EA will just carry on, as they always do. Made another shitty Star Wars game. Moving on. I mean, there's no way that what she said was not greenlit and approved talk for online social areas. Or she got talked to immediately after she said all that shit and got reprimanded. But that hasn't happened. So
no.
I'm thinking they think that's cool, which is weird for a company like EA because their CEO is famous for going out there and saying, don't like our games, don't buy it, after a huge woke backlash of Battlefield 4. So I don't know. It just seems kind of counterintuitive to what they're trying to pull off. So I don't know. We'll see it play out. Maybe it's too soon to see exactly what will come of what she said, but just nothing like what she said doesn't make sense in any direction. No matter who you are, it's like what she said is counterintuitive to everything of building a game. You're like, okay, let me get this straight. You don't like KOTOR. You like your favorite movie is the worst rated Star Wars movie of all time.
Not by the critics.
and you are, I mean, those are pretty much the big two. But
yeah.
It's just like that. I don't understand where you're going with that.
Well, I think this is where we're going. I already said Jedi Knight Revan, gender swap, pink lightsaber, Bastilla Shan. I can't even bring the words.
If you wanted to do all that, though, you would hide behind a mask. You'd be like, yes, this is going to be the greatest KOTOR of all time. There's going to be all the old tropes you remember, but there's going to be pink, and then you leave out the other parts. Like, Revan's a woman only, no customization, pink hair only, blue hair only.
Jolie Bendo is going to be a furry with, a light... just a light sprinkling of maybe pro-pedophile sentiment. Maybe like, it's just like being gay, like Shang-Chi from fucking Marvel, who was on Reddit being like, guys, pedophiles are just like gay people, we should just be nice to them. Mission Vow is probably just going to be deleted from the game because she was too cool of a female character. Female characters aren't allowed to be cool anymore, so they'll probably just delete her.
No, they're not, dude. I heard they replaced hot female portraits in WoW with fruit.
Yeah, they did. Oh my god, they did.
Such a burn for women, dude. And it's like, burn. You don't matter. You got replaced with fruit. Okay.
Carthonasi is gonna be like that, like typical beta male cuck. He's probably going to be gender fluid, and he's probably going to have a weird relationship with T3M4, a la fucking young Lando Calrissian. Zalbar is probably going to be like a super gay Wookiee, and like they're going to depict like gay Wookiee sex, I'm guessing. And man, our boy Canderous Ordo, he's like the real outlier because he was like the man's man of the game. Like, what are they going to do to Canderous Ordo?
He's gonna get killed off in the first 5 minutes. Off screen too. You're not even gonna see him die.
Oh my god, dark times. I don't think that this is even going to be like KOTOR at all. The original KOTOR was like a strategy turn-based RPG, but an American strategy turn-based RPG, which is an outlier. There weren't too many of those games ever made. It was really a genre that was forged by the original BioWare before they became a shell. And from what I can tell, there's not going to be sticking with that archetype, and we're just going to get like some sort of silly 2021 generic engine, Unreal Engine fucking bullshit. It's going to be probably just like a standard action RPG, I'm guessing.
I doubt that because they already have all the other Star Wars games. Like don't forget there's Force Unleashed that they did, which was great, and then more recently, what's Fallen Order? Was that what it was called? That was pretty good. I mean, storyline was, I would say shallow at best, but it wasn't terrible. It wasn't like one of those storylines where I was like, God, this is woke garbage. In like the technology, they like you just didn't believe it was Star Wars. Like it felt like a little unique chunk of storyline. I liked it. So they're capable of pulling it off. Don't get me wrong. So I think the fact that they're saying they're making a KOTOR game, I feel like EA, in EA's mind, they're like, oh no, we're gonna make the KOTOR game you guys like. We like money, but that chick is just being an activist, like a lot of her ilk.
Well, so, I pray that you're right about that, Broadcaster Nickels, because KOTOR is one of my favorite video games of all time. Darth Revan is one of my favorite characters of all time. Malik, I love Malik, fucking Darth Nihilus, like all these fucking legendary Sith, and just there's so much deep, rich, luscious lore in the original 2 KOTOR games. It outstretches like almost every other Star Wars game combined, with maybe the exception of the Jedi Knight series. So I'm bummed right now.
I mean, KOTOR is literally takes place in one of the coolest parts of Star Wars history.
Yep.
The 10,000 Year War, like all that's super dope. Like there's so much story just in that huge arc of Star Wars that has been barely scraped on. Besides, like you said, 2 games.
Yep.
2 games.
Well, there's also the Old Republic MMORPG, but it's very loosely connected to KOTOR. Very loosely.
Yeah.
Although
that was breaking new ground, though.
Darth Malgus was a really cool villain from the KOTOR MMO. I like Darth Malgus.
Oh, the initial storyline?
Yeah, the initial boss of the...
Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah. Well, Broadcaster Nickels, may God be with us.
What about Hutball? Let's not forget about Hutball. That was groundbreaking tech.
Hutball, man. What a fucking mode. What a mode.
Dude, why don't other MMOs do that? I don't want to go off topic too much, but the secret sauce to great games that you always remember is they always have quirky shit. Remember Blitzball? What the fuck was that doing in a Final Fantasy game? But it was dope as fuck.
Hell yeah. Fucking FF7, the fucking snowboarding game from Gold Saucer.
Yeah, exactly. I got cool borders hidden in fucking Final Fantasy 7.
Hell yeah. Well, there's another gripping story in the annals of comic book history, and that is Penguin from the new Batman movie is already getting a spin-off TV series before the movie is even released. What do you think of that?
Contracts being unfulfilled.
Well, it's Colin Farrell playing Penguin, and I like from the very first time I heard he was playing Penguin, I was like, that is a weird fit. I'm not opposed to it, but it's a weird fit. It was even weirder than Batfleck. When I first heard of Batfleck, I was like, that's a weird fit. But that even felt more natural than when I heard Colin Farrell. But then I saw the trailer, and I was like, oh shit, that's not Colin Farrell, not the Colin Farrell I know.
I bet you that it's literally all the scenes with Colin Farrell are just going to be scenes that we're going to be in this Batman movie that's probably never going to come out.
Oh, you think that movie's never going to come out?
Yeah, I think it's probably going to be failing at this point. Dude, like, it's openly...
You think they're going to
Robert Pattinson. I mean, at this point, Robert Pattinson's super pissed about them not, like, canceling the other timeline and going with his. So now he feels like he's just going to be a one-off Batman. I don't know what I feel like I'm just talking for him, but nonetheless, he has openly... There's been rumors about him being pissed about Snyder's Justice League cut, and so
okay,
I don't know, this series coming out with Penguin, it just tells me they're trying to scrap whatever they can.
Interesting.
I bet you there's going to be multiple series coming out probably, and then maybe some type of Gotham 2.0.
Well, it's weird to me because they specifically say this is a Penguin spin-off series, which to me means the protagonist is Penguin, right? So that would mean the antagonist has to be Batman, right? Like who else would be the antagonist? So is Batman going to be in the spin-off series?
Oh.
You don't think Pattinson signed up for a TV deal?
Nope.
Batfleck comes back. What do you think?
Nope.
Maybe they'll do like a virtual reality Adam West, bring him back from the grave.
I tell you exactly what it's going to be. It's going to be an origin story about penguins. I mean, it's like half the series, if not 3/4, maybe even like, maybe like 9 out of 10 episodes are Colin without penguin makeup on. Becoming a gangster and then getting fucked over ultimately at the very end. That'll be like the finale of episode, is him turning into the penguin you might see in this Batman movie. That's what I imagine it's going to be about.
Interesting. Yeah.
Low budget, don't have to use the makeup. You have a big actor. You gotta, maintain hype for a movie that you're trying to get out. Just makes sense, That's what I would do.
I don't think I've ever heard of a TV series spinoff for a movie being announced before the movie came out. Do you? Do you have any?
Well, yeah. I mean, you're right. I mean, I don't think I have any memory.
I think it's unprecedented.
I'm pretty sure I know why it's happening, though. Anyone should know why.
Well, shit, Broadcaster Nickels. There are a lot of problems today. A lot of bull dykes trying to ruin KOTOR. A lot of hastily spun Penguin spin-offs. And then we also have Halo Infinite. Tell me, Broadcaster Nickels, what have you learned in the dark, treacherous canals of Black Channel information about the impending release of Halo Infinite?
Joe, Mr. Staten, you used to be somebody. What happened to you? I watched that fucking vid doc where he looked uncomfortable and he clenched his hands together like a nervous fucking juror in a trial. And he's just like, well, we're bringing you the disappointing information that we are delaying co-op campaign for 3 months after launch and Forge 6 months after launch. No, actually, I got that backwards. Sorry. So co-op campaign is going to be 6 months after launch. And then they fucking the divine nail into the coffin. Like, and they said the word roadmap, and I just my fucking face started to itch because I was just like, I smell rotten flesh. I was just like, this is not right. Are you guys kidding me right now? You already delayed it, and now you're telling me pretty much the game isn't shipping on launch. No co-op campaign in a Halo? What?
Oh my god.
So you're telling me me and my friends that are all going to buy this on day one can't fucking do the campaign together?
That should have been the number one priority to be ready on launch.
Literally, and that's
number one priority.
That notion right there is the fact that it's not being fulfilled is just makes you really ask the question, what else isn't coming on launch? Yeah. What else are they leaving out? They just got the big 2 out of the way, God forbid, what else isn't going to show up? And then and then after they said that shit, they were like, we got year-long content planned. We have a roadmap, and I was just like, holy shit, dude. Do all these companies read from the same playbook? It's unbelievable.
Could you imagine in 1997 if when they released Final Fantasy VII, they're like, okay, we have disappointing news. The first 5 hours will be ready as planned, but the rest of the game will be delayed 6 months, 1 year, and 2 years later. But don't worry, we have a roadmap. Yeah. Could you imagine that being said back then? the company would go bankrupt. Like all their investors would pull out. They would just be crushed. Like it's crazy what is now considered acceptable.
Well, the industry in the customer base of the gaming industry got hoodwinked by graphics. Yep. I think we made this push towards realistic graphics way too fast.
Yep.
And the time money curve versus like quality of content just didn't, the ratio, it just collapsed. And now we're like, the first 5-10 years or so, you know, it was okay. People are just like, ooh, shiny graphics. They keep on getting better. This is cool. But the fucking storylines and the quality of the content and the gameplay loops just kept on diminishing in quality. And now we're at this point where the developers are just in this automatic like creation mode where it's like, well, that's just how it is. You got to make realistic games and at any cost. It's just like, if we don't make a realistic game, it's just not a video game, apparently.
Every video game now has like an 8-year development cycle. Like every single one, dude.
That's why we don't get Final Fantasy 7s anymore, though, because a developer can't make a Final Fantasy 7.
Oh,
Final Fantasy 7 looked like shit. All right? Like, it wasn't... I mean, it was cool, and it was a 3D Final Fantasy. It was groundbreaking in its own way, but let's be real here. These were cubed characters. They made sacrifices to make sure that they gave you 4 discs of fucking content, you know, and a storyline that was fucking awesome, that was worth playing. You could look past the idea that none of these characters had noses or face or mouths, you know, like it didn't matter.
And their eyeballs were just like an opaque black circle with no detail.
Yeah. They gave you a couple FMVs and you were just like, dope. I'm in.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I have a feeling. I feel a disturbance in the force. I think that maybe Relic Entertainment might come to save us, Broadcaster Nickels. What say you? Are you ready to get to our preview of Age of Empires 4?
Indeed.
What's that? You want more Crack Cellar? This is good. Join your lords on Twitter at The Crack Cellar and Facebook.com/The Crack Cellar.
Hey, you over there. Are you a straight-up Chad or a strong woman? Well, you can find us on Apple Podcasts and your favorite podcasting app. Or, if you're a straight-up beta cuck, find us on YouTube with the rest of the Cloud Chasers. And we're back with our preview of Age of Empires 4. Sadly not being created by Ensemble Studios, Broadcaster Nickels, because as we have recently found out, Ensemble Studios went out of business in 2009, 12 years ago.
Made Halo Wars.
That was the last game. That was the last game they ever made, was Halo Wars.
The fucking dope RTS.
Yeah, it was too.
It was a groundbreaking RTS as well. It did things that no RTS has done before.
Yep. It was really good. I liked it a lot. Didn't get to play it a lot because I didn't own an Xbox, but I knew a few people who had it. So I put a few hours in, and it was really fun. Really good RTS.
Yeah. I just liked the idea that there was an enemy on the field, like a boss type enemy that didn't move, but its reach was across the map. Mm-hmm. So like it would, like they could put time events on you, like you had to build a base here, but then you had to evacuate it because like the enemy you couldn't reach yet it bombed you, but then you took your resources to another base, built up, and then you did your final wave onto the enemy. You know, those were things I never saw in any other RTS, even StarCraft. So Ensemble was doing things.
StarCraft kind of stole some of the Halo Wars mechanics in those hero co-op mode that they added way later in SC2, where you get to pick like your hero and do like a co-op mission. They sort of stole a little bit of Halo Wars thunder with that. There were a couple heroes that were kind of like what you're talking about, where they had to reach across the map, and there were boss mechanics that did shit like that as well.
Yeah. That was way later.
Way later, yeah. I think that probably came 5 or 6 years after the initial release of StarCraft 2. But back
What
to
happened to
AoE 4.
Ensemble? What happened to
They just went out of business, and all the guys from Ensemble went their own ways. I think like 3 or 4 different studios was born from the ashes of Ensemble.
I feel like all the great studios have done that. And then they, over time, just become watered down studios. Some make kind of all right games, then go out of business. Some don't make games at all, then go out of business. You know, some people retire. It's like, dude, why aren't like the people that made the original Diablo and the people from BioWare that made fucking KOTOR or Mass Effect coming together to make the next great game? You know, like what's going on?
Why is a little weird.
Why are these people just like, I'm going to go my own way, make my own studio, and I'm totally going to survive in an industry that's dominated by $180 billion games like Call of Duty? You know, like, what, dude? Consolidate power.
Yeah.
Fucking. It's crazy. Anyways.
It is. It's
Age of Empires 4.
It's depressing, and it's common. Like, Asheron's Call, a great example. Turbine went defunct a long time ago, and you're just like, well, where are all these fucking guys who made the original Asheron's Call? Like, where'd they go? Like, why aren't they making a new one? And then you find out, well, a couple of them are, and they're making this new game, and you look at it, and you're like, oh, this game really sucks. And it just makes you depressed. It's just like, why are you insisting on going by yourself with no budget and just making this like indie game with like absolutely no character to it when you could like join forces with some of the other badasses and maybe get a budget going and put some real effort into this shit?
No doubt. No doubt. And the other thing is there's no proteges or like tutelage in Western game development.
It's forbidden.
Like all these guys just straight go like they're curmudgeons and isolate themselves and with other like mind curmudgeons that, you know, are just their same age. You know, they don't want young people around them learning their tricks of the trade and stuff like that. And it's really watered down the industry. You can feel it nowadays.
That's why the Japanese industry is just it's staying right where it is while the Western industry just keeps lagging further and further behind because the Japanese have a protege system.
Yep. Like you really feel the knowledge transfer in games in the Japanese scene. But in most Western, especially like, here's a good example. Call of Duty. You'd think an industry or a series of games that is so vast that by now the titles that they are coming out with are so rock solid, you know, so tight, the code impeccable. It's been iterated too many times, you know, to count. Not the case. Every game seems to be made by a different studio. Every game is ridden with different types of bugs and same bugs from previous games. There's no actual creative department in the storyline at all. They're just phoned in. They're like, oh, let's just do another World War II storyline. Let's go with Vietnam. Oh, okay. You know, it's just so watered down. It's crazy. And anyways, I'm ranting.
It's all true, unfortunately, but you know, maybe Relic Entertainment can take the trampoline bounce and go up because I don't know about you, Broadcaster Nickels, but that trailer looked pretty good, and it did strikingly similar to Age of Empires of the past. It did not look like, this is our pink-haired wheelchair mohawk version of it. It just looked like, you know, a more technologically advanced version of the tried and true gameplay from long ago.
They have to have some people from the original Ensemble studio, or at least some people that worked on Age of Empires at some point, because it looks too strikingly similar to Age of Empires 2. Yeah, there's no way people that have nothing to do with Age of Empires just did that.
Yeah, and apparently it is specifically based on Age of Empires 2. So what is your favorite Age of Empires of the original trilogy? Is it AoE 2?
Yeah, no doubt. Too.
Yeah, 2 is my favorite as well, and I think it's most people's favorite. And apparently it's Relic Entertainment's favorite because they have basically said that AoE 4 is a spiritual sequel to AoE 2, and it's going to have all of the mechanics from AoE 2, plus a few new ones, including one that was meant for the original AoE 2, but got scrapped by Ensemble back in the day because they didn't have enough time to get it in. So I find that really interesting. Like, they're really, really trying to be like, this, we have a target. It is Age of Empires 2. It's not, well, we're going to be Age of Empires adjacent. We're not sure which one it'll be like, but they're like, no, this is, we're going for AoE 2 vibes.
I mean, it's been a long time since I played Age of Empires at all, because I think I played a little bit of 3 as well. But
yeah, 3 was a little weird. They fucked the resource system up in 3. I didn't like it.
When I was watching the Age of Empires 4 trailer, I saw that they were doing hunting. Was that a thing back in the old games? Was that how you got
hunting?
certain? Yeah.
Yep.
It was.
You did that in AoE 1. Yeah, that's a
Okay.
OG mechanic.
That's something I can't even remember. It's been so long since I played those games.
Yeah, the Age of Empires series is this weird series that just existed in this very short bubble of time.
Yeah, it was just because I remember there was like 4 different kingdoms or whatever you could play as. Is that what it was?
In the original, I think it was
4 ages. In each one had 4 ages, right? You go through it was like the dark. I think that they may have added something like that.
I think there were more ages in the third one. For some reason, I remember there being like extra ages in the third one, but maybe I'm tripping.
Yeah, I just remember Age of Empires always stood out from Warcraft and StarCraft because it was, instead of just being focused on building and then pushing your army and macroing and microing your army, instead Age of Empires was, I want to say, on rails more, because it wasn't, but your units were a little bit more sophisticated, and you didn't have to actually manage them as much. You didn't have to micromanage them as much.
There was much more emphasis on managing your base.
Indeed, and because there was more things to do, like the way you gathered resources, the way you again hunted. Now that I'm remembering that, like that actually required a lot more of your attention. Like you had to go out on the map and look for deer and stuff like that, find mines of gold and what was there, like gold and silver, I think.
Iron, I think.
Iron, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Relic Entertainment, I don't really know them for too much, but there is one specific game that I do know them for, and it is a old school RTS from back in the day called Homeworld. Do you remember Homeworld, Broadcaster Nickels?
No.
Homeworld was a space RTS. It took place in space, not on a planet in space, not on a moon in space, not on a platform in space, but actually in 3-dimensional space. It was revolutionary. It was batshit crazy. It, like, when you played it, you're like, holy fuck, what is happening in this game? Because it was so foreign. At that point, there had never been an RTS like it. And I really liked it. It was one of those games from the early 2000s that just really stood out to me as just being really, maybe not the best game in the world, but they were swinging for the fences.
It's like Eve Prototype.
Yeah. So I'm happy that at least the company that's going for AoE 4, they have this punch to them. At least they used to. Who knows if it's still the same team or even any of the same people from that team, but if they have those same sort of development goals, then AoE 4 could be really good.
Let's just hope.
So the campaign is going to be about the Norman conquest of England, and there are going to be 8 races.
Is that that's just going to be like the first one, right? Because I'm guessing this is going to be like crazy, like they did. Because didn't the originals have like 4 different ages? I just remember they had like the rise of different kingdoms or something like that. Yeah. Were those like expansions, or were those all day one things you could just do?
No, they were day one.
Oh shit.
They all had, because RTSs back in the day, that's how they worked. Like the original StarCraft had 3 campaigns.
PC games were kind of different because you actually got a little bit more of updating with PC. Because StarCraft 1, you know, and Warcraft 2, they had expansions like that, right?
They did, but they also had multiple campaigns baseline. Whereas new RTSs all kind of seem to have one campaign now, and then they milk it out on DLC.
I thought Age of Empires was unique in the way that you could pick like between 20 different, like, wasn't there like a shit ton of races you could pick from, but only like 4 different kingdoms or so? I forget.
Not in the original, no. There were a lot more races in the third one. And the first one I think only had 4. But AoE 4 has 8 races: English, Chinese, Mongols, Delhi Sultanate, the French, the Abbasid Dynasty, which is basically the Middle East, the Holy Roman Empire, which is going to be my main, and then the Rus.
How Aryan of you.
Listen,
the way you said the holy, you're like the Holy Roman Empire.
Listen, man, when someone calls mid, you have to respect that. So what did you think overall from the trailer, just gameplay wise? There are a few things that stood out to me. The tree ambushes was one of the things that really stood out. Do you remember that part where it was showing them like kind of go through a forest and they had like this ambush set on both sides?
Yeah. That kind of reminded me of Ruse, where you could hide your units in forests. Did you ever play that game?
No.
It was a really cool war simulator where you didn't really build too much, but you just like had your side and you controlled your units and manipulated what the enemy saw and didn't see, and it was pretty cool. So when I saw that,
that's pretty cool.
They also had the tower siegers or siege towers, whatever they call them.
Yeah, classic. Always reminds me of Lord of the Rings when I see that shit.
Fuck yeah.
2 towers.
That's new though, right? You couldn't fight on the walls back in Age of Empires 3, could you? I know definitely not 2.
No, you couldn't in 1 or 2. I don't think you could in 3 either. But 3 I didn't play very much of. I remember when I first played 3, I was really disappointed in it to the point where I think I like uninstalled it like 3 hours after playing it. Like I don't think I played very much of it. I just remember being very disappointed in it.
Those were the dark days of RTS. I think. I mean, when did Age of Empires 3 come out? Was that after Warcraft? Was that before Warcraft 3 or after Warcraft?
It was after Warcraft 3. I think it was right after Warcraft 3, probably like 2003 or something like that.
Took 10 years for SC2 to come out.
So what do you think about the gameplay overall, though? Like,
looks good.
Yeah.
I mean, as I said, it reminds me of Age of Empires 2. Like, almost. If someone told me this was Age of Empires 2 remaster or reboot, I've been like, yeah, looks like it.
Yep. What'd you think about the graphics and interface?
Well, I think they didn't really show too much. I think some of it was hidden, to be honest, because it looked really simple. Unless I wasn't paying attention in some of the frames, but I didn't see a lot of it there.
Yeah, the interface they showed, there was not much there, and I'm not sure if that was by design, like you're saying, to hide, or if maybe it's a minimalistic interface.
Yeah, well, I mean, it can't be. because
You'd think
that would
not.
kind of worry. That would worry me if it is, because like we said, there's a lot going on in Age of Empires, and I imagine they hid the menus because they didn't want people to actually see like what the grind actually is yet.
Yeah. Yeah, well, war elephants are back, Broadcaster Nickels.
Indeed they are.
Not a moment too soon.
The Persians will stampede the gates, no matter. Oh, that was what I wanted to talk. In the trailer, it looked like the enemy had like sacked. It was rather the enemy had sacked a town, and as some of their units were leaving one of the gates, it collapsed.
Mm-hmm.
Or like the actual player collapsed his own gates to stop any more enemies from coming in. I don't know, but if that's a mechanic, that's dope. That if you can collapse one of your gates to temporarily buy yourself more time, that'd be cool.
Yeah, that's interesting now that you mention it. I remember that, but I'm not sure if that was just a death graphic or if they did it as a mechanic. That would be cool mechanic, though.
Because it was just the gate that fell.
Mm-hmm. I don't know, Broadcaster Nickels. But how do you think the hate speech enforcement's going to be on the online mode?
I just hope they don't even do anything. It'd be so alpha energy if they were just like, what hate speech? Toxic.
I think calling somebody a Mongol is actually considered a racial slur now, and there's a race in this game called the Mongols, so, you know.
Is it considered a racial slur because the Chinese got rid of the Mongols?
I'm not quite sure why or how, but I just feel like if you were to walk outside and you just saw some like really like Neanderthal looking Asian guy and you called him a Mongol, that if there was some woke person next to you, they'd look at you and be like racist or something. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, sure, but that's like calling somebody, asking if someone's pregnant when they're not.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like
yeah.
If you actually sincerely went up to a Mongol and you're like, "Are you Mongol?" I don't think they take it the same way.
Yeah,
maybe. Who knows?
I don't know. It's hard. It's hard, man. As in the immortal words of Scott Bakula, what are the rules?
Legendary episode.
They got to bring him back for a second parter to that. Like, they got to make that happen. He still works, man. He's like on NCIS New Orleans or some shit, man.
No, he's not.
He is, dude. He's like the leading man of some NCIS series.
Bakula, no.
They could.
What happened to the Quantum Leap money?
Well, Broadcaster Nickels, as we know, there are good batches and there are bad batches, and today we have the worst batch to review. Are you ready to get to our review of Dave Filoni's love child, Star Wars: The Bad Batch?
Indeed, but Gin and Juice Nickels is empty, so I need to go refill.
Good decision. And we're back with our review of Dave Filoni's Star Wars: The Bad Batch, and the creator of this Disney Plus television series describes it as the following. The Bad Batch of elite and experimental clones make their way through an ever-changing galaxy in the immediate aftermath of the Clone Wars. Short and to the point, Broadcaster Nickels. What do you think? General thoughts on the Bad Batch?
I like Dave. Dave's a good guy. Wears a cowboy hat. I can respect that. But Bad Batch seemed a little, I'm not going to say bad. No pun intended. But I'm going to say a little bloated. A little little too much fat,
Mm-hmm.
a little bit too much marble. Because I think for me, it only picked up, and I might be getting this wrong, but it was like episode 10 or 11, The Devil's Plan. I think it was when they were on, what is it, Ryok or something? The tentacle people.
Oh, yeah.
And that Empire general, I forget his name, but his plan started to slowly unfold, and everything before that was really just like happy-go-lucky time with Omega and friends. Like maybe one or two of those episodes was not like the one of them with Finnick, I think her name is, and Bane. What's his name?
Cad Bane, yeah.
Yeah, what's his name?
Cad Bane.
Cad Bane. Yeah, that was cool, but still, it was all kind of just like fluff, and we all knew what was going to happen to Kamino. Like, really, the meat on the bone was all pretty much just passed over. And that, I think, saying that kind of leads me to my main gripe of the show is that everything that you would consider to be, like, the critical points, like, say, Kamino and what happened to the Empire using the clones and stuff would be more of a center focus. But in this, it's kind of the side plot. You're kind of convinced the whole time that Omega is going to be like this linchpin, almost like Baby Yoda was in The Mandalorian type of thing. But she's kind of a nothing burger. You find out she's fucking Boba Fett's daughter, like Jango is his son, and you're like, okay, here we go. Nothing. Never mentioned again, really. No connection of any significance after that. It just seems like the whole series kind of lost up until, like I said, The Devil's Plan, which is like episode 11, I think. I'm pretty sure it's 11.
Yeah.
Which means there's only 4 or 5 episodes after that. Dude, episode 1 and 2, the last episode, more importantly, was pretty dope. Don't get me wrong. So it picked up. The series, it ended well, but it just, I feel like it just didn't focus on the things that I feel like it should focus on, and I feel like most Star Wars fans would like to focus on. Like, if the series actually fleshed out the Kamino, I forget those aliens on Kamino, but the Kaminoans or whatever.
The Kaminoans.
If that storyline was more than just a couple conversations in the same fucking room throughout the whole series between the 3 of them, and I think one of them dies on like episode 9 or something like that, so it's only the 2 of them left. But at the very end of the series, she's just like, the general comes in the room, is just like, we captured your medical officer trying to leave with supplies, and he's like, oh damn, I'll punish her. He's like, nah, we're taking her with us, and you're dead. The end. It's just, I don't know. Seemed really just shallow and dumb when you think that would have been the more critical piece of the storyline to pay attention to.
Yeah, not a perfect show, definitely. A lot of room for improvement going into season 2, so hopefully they don't just go status quo and they actually kind of tighten things up. Because it is renewed for season 2 already. I think they renewed it like not even halfway through the run of season 1, so it's a pretty quick renewal. I think my sentiment's pretty close to yours, actually. I think this had a very strong start and a very strong finish, and just a few slow spots in between. Like you're talking about, my least favorite part of the Bad Batch is what I have dubbed the Mercenary Mission of the Week saga. And that is basically when they run out of money and they have to go work for that dinosaur chick in the
Sid,
bar.
yeah. Dude, that's funny you said dinosaur. She reminds me of the mom from Dinosaurs.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah,
Yep.
dude.
As soon as I saw her, I thought the exact same thing. And she's kind of an annoying character. She's like, I'm a badass woman with an attitude, but every once in a while I'll show my soft side. You know what I mean? Like one of those characters. You're just like, oh, give me a break. But that's not even why I didn't like those episodes. This is a show that begs to be serialized. This is like a comic book style show. It is not Star Trek The Next Generation where they just go to the next planet of the week. And they kind of did that in this part of the show where it's just like, oh, here's a new weird mercenary mission that has absolutely nothing to do with the arc. And it did that like 4 or 5 times until it sort of moved on from it and resumed the real storyline.
Yeah.
That part I really did not like. But the rest of it, I mostly did. And then, like I said, the first 2 episodes and the last 2 episodes, I fucking loved.
Yeah. I feel like maybe I'm spoiled with, like, The Mandalorian, where I felt like every episode kind of went into the next episode perfectly.
Mm-hmm.
And this series just didn't do that.
No.
Every episode, even the good episodes, the endings were just kind of terrible. There was no cliffhanger. There was literally almost no cliffhangers besides episode 15 when the Empire guns down Kamino.
Which was really cool. I'm such a sucker for fucking Star Destroyers appearing from the fog above their target. Like, as soon as I saw that, I'm just like, yeah.
When I saw it, I clenched my fist. I was like, for the Empire.
it's a good day to be in the Empire.
But, on that fact, again, things that just felt kind of like a nothing burger. That dude just blowing up Kamino for no fucking reason. He's just like, I don't like these people. Bye. It's like, wait a minute. These facilities could be of a huge asset to fucking the Empire. He's like, nah, fuck that. I'm gonna blow this whole fucking place up.
Yeah, well,
and I'm also gonna do it with my prize soldier in there.
I kind of agree with it, but on the other hand, I understand from like an Empire perspective, the Empire is paranoid that someone else will use the Kamino's technology to raise an army against them.
But see, here's the logic hole with that being applied as the reason is that at the very beginning of the series, they're like, well, we think we can make cheaper human replacements that are just as good. So if they really believed that, then they wouldn't be scared of the clone army because they'd know they'd outnumber the clone. No one would have the resources to do the cloning for one, like the Empire would. And even if they did, they'd still have more soldiers that are cheaper and better, right? Like they figured it out. So just like the guy that like pretty much touted how clones were inferior seemed pretty fucking scared of clones at the end and was going out of the way to just destroy all traces of them. Like he really got touched by a clone when he was young or something like that.
Oh, maybe we'll get to see more of that in season 2.
Yeah, who knows?
Well, Omega's an interesting thing in this show for me because I remember I waited in line for 9 hours for opening midnight Star Wars Episode 1, Phantom Menace, when I was in 8th grade.
I know where this is going.
I waited in line and I got in that theater and it was like the greatest party of my life. Every single person in that theater was so fucking psyched to be in that theater room. Like it was like you could feel the joy in the air. People cheered. I want to say 36 different times throughout that movie, people would just cheer. And it was one of the greatest experiences of my life. Like it's one of the strongest memories of my adolescence. It was amazing. And I love episode 1. To this day, I will defend it tooth and nail for having the greatest non-CG lightsaber battle of all fucking time between Darth Maul, Qui-Gon Jinn, and Obi-Wan Kenobi. It just can't be touched.
Cool as jump too.
Oh, dude, it was an amazing movie. And the thing that I always heard from people that talk shit about episode 1, the linchpin to every single complaint, it was always the same thing. Jar Jar Binks. I hate Jar Jar Binks.
You were going to say Kid Anakin.
That was the other one. Now, at the time, I didn't have a problem with Jar Jar Binks, mainly because he's a Sith Lord, and I understood his power. And Kid Anakin...
As a Sith Lord, I detected his presence immediately, and I knew that he was going to be a significant character.
And in Kid Anakin, while he was a little whiny, he also fucking had one of the coolest Star Wars scenes of all time in the form of that pod race with Zabza. Like, that shit was fire. That pod racing shit was awesome. And maybe it's because I was a 14-year-old kid when I was watching it. I don't know, but I love it. And when I watched...
It was pretty cool for the time. I mean, it was pretty awesome.
And when I started watching The Bad Batch, I started to come to a realization. Omega annoys me. The character annoys me. Her place and purpose in the show annoys me. Her lack of substance annoys me. And her stupid little pink force bow annoys me. And then I stopped to think, oh, fuck.
Wait, it's a force bow?
I don't know what the fuck it is. That's what. But anyway, so I stopped to think, I'm like, oh, so Omega, for me in Bad Batch, is exactly what Jar Jar Binks and Kid Anakin was to all the adults that talk shit about episode 1 when I was a kid. And I'm like, what are you talking about, dude? That shit's awesome. So I don't know if I can really give the show negative marks for Omega, because I feel like I'm staring into a mirror darkly when I criticize Omega. Like, I'm doing exactly what I lambasted adults for doing when I was a kid to episode 1. What do you think about that?
Well, you are. I mean, that's what we're doing with almost everything. I mean, you could say that about She-Ra. You know,
oh god,
we just don't understand. You know, kids love it. You know, but that's because kids eat anything. You know, it's because we're adults. We understand this, and why we engage in the content that we did, and that we grew up and to love the content that we did. But I think I took Omega's character a little bit differently. I think I enjoyed Omega's character more than I would typically of any more of her type of archetype of characters.
Mm-hmm.
Because she has promise. But like I said, all of it was really glanced over. I feel like Omega would have been way cooler in the series if they actually, I don't know, leaned in more to the idea of why Django and her exist, why the Kaminoans were trying to make a more advanced clone that's based
mean why
directly
her
off.
and Boba exists, right? Django's the original that the clones come from.
Yeah, sorry.
Boba's the son.
Yeah, my bad.
Okay.
My bad, yeah. That, and then, the fact that they were kind of playing with the idea that she might be force sensitive because she can, read, but it might be a misplaced thought with her just being able to detect other clones, who knows? But it just felt like they immediately just sidecarded her as, just the little kid that's tagging along that's smarter than you think.
Yeah. Yeah, there was this one episode, too, where they kind of tried to give her moment. You remember they were, in a factory? It was one of the mercenary missions of the week. But remember, she went into a factory, and she just got her bow, I think. It was, the first episode with her force bow.
Yeah, that was when the droids came back. That was a cool episode.
Yeah, that was a cool episode. I think that was, their attempt to give her moment. But for me, when I really delve deep into this and I think about it, it's okay, Kid Anakin had that whole pod racing scene / arc for a good 25 minutes of episode 1, which was just amazing. Omega never had anything like that in Bad Batch. So am I really making a fair comparison? Because I don't know, maybe... Because Omega doesn't deserve the benefit of the doubt that I'm trying to give her out of guilt.
Yeah. Well, consider this. There has been nothing original since the prequel series trilogy.
True.
Nothing original. Everything after the prequel trilogy is just based on existing content.
Right.
Existing ideas. Nothing is fresh, really. even Omega's not fresh. She's just another clone. She's just like Boba. Like, she's not. There's nothing new. There's nothing. Like, think about like the double-sided lightsaber.
God, that was so epic.
You know, they tried to do it with like the cross hilt with fucking Kylo Ren. You know, which was kind of. I mean, I'll give it to him. It was an idea, but it just didn't have the same energy. But still,
I'd rather have the Swiss Army knife red lightsaber for Darth Rey that never happened, that was in the trailer. To this day is one of the biggest annoyances in my life. They're like, yo, here's Darth Rey with this crazy lightsaber, and oh, by the way, this isn't real. This is not real. Well, not as strong as The Mandalorian for sure. This is
no, not at all.
This is not
Mandalorian's original.
It is. And like you said, every episode's strong. The weakest episode in The Mandalorian is still strong.
Oh, for sure. Well, I mean, I'm not going to try to compare them too much because they have two completely different budgets and what they're trying to accomplish. Because obviously, Mandalorian's more of an
you can do anything with animation,
kind of,
man.
True, but I feel audience-wise, like Bad Batch is more of a kids' cartoon. They want to make sure younger kids can watch it, whereas Mandalorian's like more about older kids and young adults and adults.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll guarantee you that, like, if they did a demographic on who's watched The Bad Batch, it's gonna fucking go heavily towards adults, even though it's quote-unquote for kids.
Well, that's the only people that care about Star Wars.
Kids don't give a fuck about Star Wars anymore.
No doubt. It's like maybe some, like, nerds do, but there's always going to be nerds. That's just like as old as time, you know? Like, there's always going to be the outliers that like this shit, and they're going to grow up to be like us, that are talking about it fondly and stuff like that, but that's always a diminishing number. You're not, like, talking about the majority here. Like, no one, the last time, like, people were like, "Oh, have you heard about Star Wars?" was what, in the 80s? You know, like, never happened again.
Yeah, and when Star Wars came out, it was revolutionary. When the Disney Star Wars sequel trilogy came out, it was dog shit compared to just like its contemporaries. Like, what was out in the same period as, let's just say, The Last Jedi. I don't know. How about Infinity War? Like, one of the greatest comic book movies of all time, just casually right next to The Last Jedi. There was no competition like that for Empire Strikes Back. When Empire Strikes Back came out, it was Empire Strikes Back, and that's the fuck it, gentlemen. Buckle up.
Still is no competition. I mean, if we're doing like complete crossovers, I mean, Predator could definitely compete. There's a couple movies.
I think was Predator at the same time? I thought Predator was a little bit after Empire.
I think Predator was like, what, 88 or 87 or something like that?
Yeah, well, no, I think Predator was like 85-ish, wasn't it?
Was it?
I think so. I mean, Empire Strikes Back was like 82 or something. It was early 80s. So, yeah, I don't know, man. Fucking, what do you think, though? Favreau.
Predator's 87. Nailed it. Boom.
No, you said 88, but we'll move on.
I said 88 or 87.
So maybe Jon Favreau has more to do with the success of The Mandalorian than Filoni, based off of Bad Batch being markedly inferior to Mandalorian. What do you think about that thesis?
Say that again.
I'm wondering now, well, because Mandalorian has a power couple behind it, Favreau and Filoni. Now, before I wasn't sure if it was more Favreau or more Filoni, but after watching Bad Batch, which Favreau has absolutely nothing to do with, I'm starting to think that maybe Favreau has more to do with the success of Mandalorian than Filoni did. What do you think about that?
Well, yes, I will agree with you, but I'm not going to agree with you in the way that, like, I'm going to say Filoni's not as necessary as Favreau for The Mandalorian, because Filoni has proven himself to be an amazing writer. And the Bad Batch, concept-wise, was a great storyline. It's just maybe the direction wasn't that good. Like you're saying, the absence of Favreau, which is a huge component in Mandalorian. He's a great director. I mean, he's known for Iron Man, which is literally what jump-started the MCU. So
it is the MCU as far as I'm concerned.
he wrote, direct, and produced, I think, Iron Man, didn't he? So John Favreau. Can you
just imagine John Favreau and Robert Downey Jr. just doing like lines off of hookers' asses right before they get on set?
Yeah. They're probably eating cheeseburgers too, and he's like, "Let's do a cheeseburger line at the end of the movie." Like, no doubt, it was great idea, great idea.
Oh man. One of the things I didn't like about The Bad Batch was all of the tie-ins with Star Wars Rebels, and that's because I never watched Star Wars Rebels. So every time I saw one, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm supposed to be excited about this, but instead I feel disconnected because I never watched Rebels. And one of those episodes is the one you were talking about earlier with the Twi'leks, the Twi'lek planet.
Yeah. I think it's Ryok or something like that.
Yeah, and the character is what's her name, like Ursula? No, it's
Arda or Ada or something like that. Are you talking about the daughter of the general?
Hera Syndulla. That's who I was talking about. The Twi'lek daughter. That's like she's a main character of Star Wars Rebels. In fact, I think she is the main character of Star Wars Rebels. So that episode Hera Syndulla. So that episode was supposed to be like this, like, oh, cool, I get to see her backstory and blah, 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 blah. And I'm just like, oh, can we just hit the skip button on this fucking... And it was like 2 episodes, wasn't it? I think it was a 2-part, if I recall. No. So like that part really stuck out. That's the Devil's
Plan. That's why I liked... That was the second part of that storyline playing out.
And the thing about it is it was a really well-constructed episode. There was nothing really bad about it. It's just like... I don't like it when you make a TV series and like you have to kind of be invested in a previous TV series to kind of get into it. It's just like Bad Batch isn't Star Wars Rebels. Like you don't have to tie into it at all. Like the Bad Batch has a natural tie-in to Clone Wars because of Echo.
Which they should have leaned into way more.
Yeah, like when Rex showed up, I was psyched about that. I thought Fives
I don't know
eventually, but
I didn't know any of that stuff. So Rex and Echo are from
they're from the Clone Wars. Yeah, the Clone Wars TV series, which is really good, and I highly recommend watching it.
Huh?
It's George Lucas made it. Like I don't know if you know this or not, but the Star Wars Clone Wars animated series is created by George Lucas. He was on the show with Dave Filoni. Him and Dave Filoni did it together.
I'm gonna download that then.
Yeah, it's really good, and like there is some really like I won't spoil it because I think you're gonna watch it, and I don't want to spoil it. But there is some shit in there you're gonna be like, oh fuck, how did I not watch this sooner? Type shit involving some characters that you really like. So
I did get spoiled a little bit. I know Darth Maul shows up and stuff like that, so yeah. I know all that stuff.
Yes. Well. It's a great show, and because The Bad Batch is intrinsically tied to the Clone Wars, I don't mind that stuff relating back to the Clone Wars. There is no intrinsic tie to Star Wars Rebels. They just did it. You know what I mean? Like, there's no reason they had to. So,
well, Dave Filoni, he's the reason.
Yeah. Well, it's a small gripe, but
my creation.
It just kind of annoyed me. Yeah. So one thing I did like though is the ongoing arc between Crosshair and the rest of the Bad Batch. I really enjoyed like that whole they betrayed Crosshair, or did Crosshair betray them? Crosshair chose a side, they chose a side. Now Crosshair is hunting them across the galaxy. Like that whole thing was great. I loved that part of the series.
Yeah, that was one of the more favorable parts of the series, no doubt. I loved the line too. I think they used it a little too much towards the end, or I should say towards the middle, because they really just stopped saying it altogether. But when he was just like, when he was exactly what it was, but it's like, I'm a good soldier. Good soldiers follow orders.
They did say that a lot.
That was pretty good, dude. I was like definitely an evil Empire line. It's like for the Empire.
Yeah. Did you know that the same guy does all of the Bad Batch voices? It's the same guy who does all of them.
Is it the actual dude that plays Boba? Tamara?
No. Not at all. Not at all.
Huh. That's crazy, though.
It's D. Bradley Baker.
Huh. Is he the one that's done all the voices for the animated clones for a while?
Yeah, he does Rex. He did all of the clones in Clone Wars 2. So
wait a minute, the movie?
No. The Clone Wars animated series.
Okay.
So like he does Captain Rex and all the other clone troopers in Clone Wars.
Huh.
And he does them all in Bad Batch as well. So
Interesting.
yeah. And you want to know something else really crazy about our boy D. Bradley Baker?
What?
You're going to trip out when you hear this. He was the announcer on Legends of the Hidden Temple from Nickelodeon from back in the day. He was the fucking announcer. And do you remember?
He was our OMAC?
Yes, you remember. He was that talking rock god guy.
Yeah,
That's
dude.
so fucking crazy.
Dude, they're doing another run of Legend of the Hidden Temple made for adults, like people like us that grew up watching it.
Hell yeah.
I don't know how to get in on it. I know me and Stormy tried looking it up at one point and we couldn't figure it out. We don't know if they haven't opened up the trials yet, but we want in.
Yeah, they should make them do like Jaeger bombs before each trial.
That's what I'm saying, dude. I was just like, you should make them do like just 2 Jaeger bombs, then run across that pool on the boogie boards with the ropes. No one passes. It's impossible to stand on a fucking boogie board.
I'm so in for an adult Legends of the Hidden Temple. I hope that happens.
Bradley will come out and just make the kids disappear. You're just like, what happened to the kids? Who knows?
Man, there's something so weird about like early to mid 90s Nickelodeon live action TV shows. There was just like a dark magic to it a little bit. The dark arts.
Yeah.
But man, speaking of voice actors, we talked about this a little bit in a previous podcast when we did like our initial review of the first episode. I don't know if you remember that or not, but the Moff Tarkin voice actor, it still sticks with me to this day. I really hated the Moff Tarkin voice actor.
Yeah, that's why they didn't use him that much.
He was a chud, man. Like I would have just killed him from the show and not showed him at all until you can find a good voice actor. But alas. But I enjoyed the diversity of planets in this show. There was a strong diversity. There was, I want to say, like 15 different planets they went to throughout the show. Like, I think there was basically a new planet every single episode, just about.
Yeah.
Which was cool. I really appreciate space shows that don't stay in the same spot forever. I hate sci-fi shows that are just like, oh, everything happens on this one set on this one planet. It's like, nah, let's move around a little bit. Space is big. But I do wish there was more Sith and Jedi interactions in this show.
Mean any?
Yeah. It was like the first episode really is almost the entire interaction with the Sith and Jedi.
It is, isn't it?
Basically, it is. I don't think anything... No, yeah, I don't think there's any other past that, which is kind of a bummer to me, because I really expected Lord Vader to show up at a certain point. He just never did.
Wait a minute. They don't run back to that. They don't run back into the Padawan.
Nope. They just left that in the air. Never touched
I totally
it again.
forgot about that.
Yeah.
So wait a minute. That Padawan actually may have died. Yep. I thought that was just That's so funny to think about in hindsight. It's like, did that kid die? I don't know.
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess like according to like the George Lucas canon, there are only 2 Sith at this point of the history of the show, and it's Lord Vader and Palpatine. Let's fucking see him. You don't have to make the whole show about him, but how about we get one fucking episode with him, or one of them at least?
Let's see some power pieces move. Okay, let's see some strategy. Let's see the storyline get mixed up in an eventful way. Let's not see just a bunch of low pawns every episode doing storylines that go nowhere. They don't go. I'm not maybe not say go nowhere, but you just know because of the period and the characters that nothing's going to be made of this. Just give us something. Make the Bad Batch cool. Make them go out in a blaze of glory. Make them connect to some other storyline, but so far nothing.
Yeah, and there is going to be a season 2, so they have time to fix every problem I have with the show. So hopefully they do, but we'll see. Another problem I had is, where are the ship battles? There are like no ship battles in this entire show. Like Star Wars is ship battles. It's ship battles and Jedi fights.
Again, why the last 2 episodes are the best.
Yep, exactly. Yep.
Because they're actually Star Wars episodes.
Mm-hmm.
You got Star Destroyers. You got fucking Camino sinking into the ocean. You got ship battles. I don't even know what those TIE fighters were. They weren't regular TIE fighters, but they were essentially.
Those are like the in-between between the TIE fighter and the fucking ARC. What do they call the ARC trooper starfighters from the Clone Wars?
Is that what they were called?
Yeah, I forget exactly what they're called. I think they were something like that.
I also liked the abrupt transition to stormtroopers in the last episode.
It was abrupt, wasn't it?
Just seeing them like coming, you're like, oh, okay, here we go. Just fucking gun Camino down. Right to stormtroopers.
Yep. Yeah. Well, man, I just want to say I really like the final 2 episodes of this show. I don't know what it is. I think I've just been waiting my entire life to see them, kind of, because I always loved the Camino part of the prequel trilogy. I loved the aliens. I loved their rainy-ass ocean planet. I loved their architecture. I loved the whole concept of them being these master cloners, and they're just like this one-trick pony. They couldn't do anything else, but they made the best fucking clones in the universe. That whole part of the prequel trilogy I was in love with, and I always wondered what the fuck happened to Camino. And they answered it, and I'm really happy about that, even though it wasn't like, there's nothing really groundbreaking about it. It's really just exactly what you expected. Some asshole General Hux wannabe being like, I don't like those Caminians.
Caminoans.
Commander, fire.
Fire when ready. Man. Rest in power, Tarkin. He had like one of the most. That shit was in my dreams as a young child.
Yep.
May fire when ready.
Yeah. Well, the guy who played Grand Moff Tarkin and the guy who played Obi-Wan Kenobi in the original trilogy, they were like legit thespians. Like they were actors. So when you look back at how good those 2 characters were, you're just like, oh, right, because they weren't just some goofball off of Hollywood Boulevard. They were like these fucking Shakespearean actors from fucking Brisbane or some shit.
From fucking Brisbane or some shit.
Different time, but now we live in a time of season 2 of Bad Batch. Broadcaster Nickels. I had a prediction in our sort of mini review of the first episode. We both kind of predicted something. I don't remember what you predicted, but what I predicted is that Baby Yoda would show up. And he didn't, so I'll take an L for that prediction. Do you remember what the prediction was?
No.
Yeah, I don't either. So we'll just give you an automatic L.
It was probably scathing. That's probably what it was. Knowing me, it's probably scathing.
That being said, let's get our predictions for season 2 in. What do you think? What is your big prediction for what's going to happen in season 2? And not like some standard boilerplate shit. I want you to swing for the fences here.
Well, I'm not going to say it's like really sweet. It's probably a little bit out there probably than you're expecting, because maybe I picked up on it because I didn't see you mention it at all in this segment. But at the very end, when that medical officer or whatever gets introduced to whatever Empire scientist lady at the end, and she's like, "We got big plans for you," that made me think that this is where the Empire starts cloning like Baby Yoda and what's his name from the newest trilogy? I forget his name. Guy got cut in half by Kylo Ren. What's his name?
Oh, Snoke.
Snoke, yeah. Just cloning in general. I'm like, oh, okay, so this is where the Empire continues its cloning operations. This is how it does it, is they have one Kaminoan in the background, which is still up in the air of what actually eventually comes to of her, because she's obviously in no storylines going forward. But
well,
yeah. But I don't think you're half wrong. I think you may have been half right with the Baby Yoda thing, because that ending, that was the first thing that popped in my head when they said, "We have big plans for you." I'm just like, oh, this is the beginning of cloning for the Empire. Post Clone Wars.
Well, I know that there was a lot of talk about Mandalorian and Bad Batch retconning the Disney sequel trilogy. Is specifically with the whole Palpatine Snoke cloning storyline. So what you're thinking is that they're actually going to solidify that and not retcon it.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Well, they could still retcon most of Snoke's storyline, but still keep true to the idea that Baby Yoda was part of a cloning program. Because we still don't know.
A clone.
Yeah.
That's juicy.
Well, I'm sorry. I'm getting a little mixed up, because you find out Baby Yoda isn't a clone. But there was that episode in Mandalorian where you see that they're cloning still. Remember?
Yeah.
On Tatooine. Was it Tatooine they were on? It was some desert planet.
I think
they go into that facility. Yeah, because they were in Mos Eisley. Or no. They weren't in Mos Eisley. They were in another town, but it was still Tatooine.
I think it was, yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, so sorry, Baby Yoda doesn't have anything. I don't know why I was saying that, because you do find out Baby Yoda's not a clone. What's his name? Gabu or something? Some bullshit.
Yeah.
But
well,
nonetheless, you get what I'm saying, is that I think that at the end there that is what they're hinting towards.
Interesting. Well, you could be right about that. That is interesting that there's one Camino left standing, and she is going to have a lot of plans for her in the Empire, which is definitely a very telling statement. What I am actually expecting, I'll say it's a prediction for season 2, but it could be a prediction for season 3 if it goes that far. I think it's going to happen at some point in the show that we're going to see Obi-Wan Kenobi smuggle Luke and Leia and like set all of the seeds for like Luke being on Tatooine with the fucking uncle and aunt May or whatever the fuck their names were. I don't even remember anymore. And then Leia on oh god, what was I don't even remember the planet that she was on anymore, but with the guy from General Hospital.
Oh.
What was the name of that planet that the Star Destroyer or the Death Star destroyed in that first movie?
Oh, Alderaan.
Alderaan, there we go. Yeah, so I think that what we're going to see is Obi-Wan Kenobi show up with the Force twins, and I think that the Bad Batch is going to play a role in getting them to where they need to go that sets up the original trilogy.
I feel it.
Well, they already got Ewan McGregor. They'll just be like, hey,
True.
while you're,
The dots are connecting.
while you're, in your trailer between shots, why don't you do a couple voice acting roles here? Just say a couple lines, and we'll get you on the Bad Batch.
Give you a couple mil, a couple briefcases, maybe a truck or two.
You see that Brinks truck over there? A quarter of it might have your name on it. We're not asking for much.
I thought you were tired, honey. I think I could persuade you if you saw a Brinks armored truck, in his Jedi suave voice.
Well, Broadcaster Nickels, as you know, here in the Crack Cellar, we have hits, we have misses, and we have whiffs. What is your hit?
The hit. Hard. It's hard to say what the hit is because there's nothing really knocked out of the fucking park in this series, but I'd say the gunning down of Camino. No, I'm just kidding. Probably, I don't know. It's probably just an out there one, but I think the hit of the series in general is just showing you what happened to Camino. And maybe not the gunning down of it in general, but just the overall what happened to Camino and why it's never been mentioned ever again. I like the fact that they filled that hole in.
Yeah,
that was cool. It's sad to say that is what I'm picking because I don't feel like there's really anything that stood out. But yeah. What's yours?
Well, Broadcaster Nickels, I'm glad you asked. My hit is actually a little generic this time. I'm going to say it is the squad interaction between the Bad Batch, the interpersonal dialogue, the character connections, the way Tech will talk to Echo, and the way Echo will talk to Hunter, and the way Hunter will talk to Wrecker, and the way Wrecker will talk to Omega. I really feel like for a show that has an ensemble cast of main characters this big, the interpersonal dialogue was very strong. All of the characters meshed well together, and it's probably because they're all voiced by the same dude, but they meshed really well, and I liked all of them. I even liked Crosshair, who was not on the team. He was
most
the bad
generic
guy.
Too.
He was the most generic.
The same lines over and over.
But they were like some banger 1980s level one-liners.
They were Terminator lines.
Yeah. So yeah, I guess my hit is just the overall interactions between the Bad Batch themselves. I just really liked the dialogue between them. I think it just was written very well and portrayed very well. That being said, Broadcaster Nickels, what is your miss?
My miss could be a lot of things, really. But I think the main miss was just the substance. There's no substance in almost any of the episodes. Every episode kind of lacked meat on the bones. Everything, like I mentioned earlier, with Mandalorian, everything led into the next episode. Even the worst episode still felt like a tiny sliver of one of the main movies from the old days, When they fell into the ice caves on that planet and the spiders were about to wreck their ship, but they barely got out. Kind of a lame duck episode as far as compared to everything else, but still, it was like this thing that slowed them down from going to the next planet that they mentioned in the first episode that they got into the third to the third episode in.
Still better than the prequel or the sequel trilogy is what you're trying to say.
but there was substance to it. You heard everything that was played out was slightly mentioned before. Like you felt like you kind of were being asked to remember things, was with a series like The Bad Batch. It just, there was nothing to chew on. Like every episode was just like, good job. Well, I feel like episode 1 through 9 or 10 was just like, you're not coming, Omega. You're coming, Omega. You're not coming, Omega. You're coming, Omega. It's like, and then after that, it was kind of like slowly starting to tell something significant. But then it was just like, nah, Kamino was just blown up. Guy didn't like him. That's it.
Yeah.
We took one of their scientists. But we'll tell you that next season, which, might be good. Might be better than this season. But again, no substance at all.
Yeah.
In like the connections, like when you told me that, like, when you were talking about the first episode, and you're like, yeah, the kid. I was like, oh shit, the kid. Did he die? Or did he survive? Like, who knows? And I'll tell you, that's not in a good way, like, oh, that they're going to explain that in season 2. If they do explain that in season 2, it will be to no one's surprise. All right? People will definitely have forgotten about that kid. Because I think the writers forgot about that kid.
Yeah. Yeah, I mostly agree with you. There was definitely a few episodes that didn't have a lot of meat on the bone. But there were a lot that did. Like, what stands out? That episode where they were on the ship graveyard planet, with just like shit tons of like old Galactic Republic fucking capital ships broken and shit. And
that's when they met Rex, right? Got the chips out.
Yeah, it's when Crosshair tracked him down for the first time, or was it the second time? I forget. But there was a lot of stakes in that episode. It was a really cool setting, a lot of cool moments. Like when they turn the engine on and they're like trying to race out of the, like, there was a lot of cool stuff in that episode. And that was kind of just like a sort of like a throwaway episode, but it was really good. So again, I see what you're saying.
Away. You see what you said? You used the word throw away.
Yeah, but I think that there are only a couple really bad episodes in the show. I don't think there are that many bad episodes. I think there are like 3 or 4 that you could just like totally just cut out. But I think that for the most part, they were pretty good. And some were really good. Not very many, but I think 5 or 6 episodes of this show were really good, in my opinion. That being said, my miss is straightforward. Lack of space battles. The fucking show is called Star Wars. Okay? Star Wars. You cannot do 16 episodes of a Star Wars series and have like 2 ship battles in the entire fucking thing. That was a huge miss for me.
Yeah. That seemed odd too, but again, I think it just plays into them just not knowing what's going on.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm being harsh a little bit because it was a good series. I mean, it wasn't terrible, but I feel like I'm going to go watch the Clone Wars now and be like, yeah, Bad Batch definitely sucked.
Well, like right now, as of right now, Clone Wars is a much better series. Now, we can see where Bad Batch goes, but Clone Wars is legendary. Like the later seasons, I'll warn you right now, the first 2 seasons are a little rough. But once you get into season 3, 4, dude, it gets good. So hold on to your butt.
4 seasons?
I think there's 5, actually. Maybe 6. 5 or 6 seasons total.
Sweet Christmas.
It's been a long time since I watched Clone Wars. That being said, Broadcaster Nickels, what is your whiff?
My whiff. My whiff is probably and this is more of a tailored one, more honed in on the storyline itself, is the offhanded comment that Omega is the daughter of Jango and the sister of Boba. like, I get it. They're all clones. It's a clone story. They're all based on Django. Like, to say that's just kind of connecting her. But that's a huge connection. That's a significant story element that they just really glanced over. And I don't know if that was like an order from the top down. You know, it's like, oh, you got to mention that in this series because we got plans in the future, you know, to make a female boba equivalent, you know, for women power type of thing. I don't know if that's what the type of thing was, or if it was a more genuine thing, you know, because if it's not that and it's a more genuine thing, I think it's a really cool concept. The fact that like her name was Omega, then they had mentioned the idea that she's the Omega of Alpha, who is Boba. That was cool. That was just one of those moments where I was like, oh shit, okay, that's kind of like a believable missing element to an established storyline, instead of just like the more typical insertion, you know, blatant insertion of something that never existed. So, but then it just never happened. Nothing ever came of it. So I think that was, and again, I'm going to acknowledge that season 2 might further that part of the storyline, but nonetheless, to mention it so early on and to not even the tiniest mention of it ever again for the next 12 plus episodes, I think, is crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Especially that at the end of the series or the end of the season is Camino blowing up. You think them going back or something like that, there would have been a moment where she discovered a little bit more of that storyline. But no, nothing.
Yeah. Well, I'm not going to lie. My whiff is exactly the exact same as yours. In fact, I think this might be the first time that's ever happened where your whiff is literally exactly what mine was. I had huge problems with the fact that they just threw that out there, then it never addressed it again. And they sort of used her as a MacGuffin.
Yes, good term, yes.
She just like led nowhere. They like throw out all of this mystical, powerful information about her, then they're just like, we're never going to talk about that again. And have fun watching her train with Dinosaur Woman with her force bow, and that's the substance you get the rest of the time. So I'll do it audible, and I'll change my whiff to just the lack of characters that I expected to see in a crossover period of time that goes between Revenge of the Sith and A New Hope. So when you think of, okay, this takes place, this connects, this is the bridge between Revenge of the Sith and A New Hope, you're going to expect to see Palpatine, you're going to expect to see Vader, you're going to expect to see Obi-Wan Kenobi, you're going to expect to see the Force Twins, you're going to expect to see all these characters that are intrinsic to what's about to happen in the future of Star Wars. We don't see any of them. None of them. Not even for a second. Like, I get that it's not about them.
They really put those things on the pedestal too much.
It's also not about Hera fucking Syndulla either, but you gave her a 2-episode arc. So like, what the fuck?
No shit. You can't even see Vader like say a goddamn line, but you can get Hera Syndulla for a whole episode.
Yeah. It
is surprising.
It was weak. It was just weak, and it's one of those things though that they can remedy in season 2. So I'm really hoping that they learn their lessons and just go meat to the bone, as you put it, for season 2. Let's just go all meat to the bone. None of this bullshit.
They really need character depth. They really need it. Omega needs fleshed out more. The whole Bad Batch needs fleshed out more. Like, cool. I didn't watch the Clone Wars. I might get a little bit more on Echo and stuff like that. But I can't.
You'll get a lot more on Echo.
I can't imagine it's gonna make me be like, oh yeah, the Bad Batch is just such a more well-rounded unit now. I feel like they're more well explained. Like, there's still like no character development to that team in the series, like at all. They're just like, we're a unit. We're unique.
Yeah.
We meet Rex, who we knew. He gets our chips out. We're all just super loyal. There's no backstory. You imagine that there's not one episode where there's like, even for a brief few moments, like some backstory to one of the characters, or like them going through some other trials or something like that. Maybe during the Clone Wars or something like that.
Yeah. Well, Broadcaster Nickels, as you know, here in the Crack Cellar Podcast, we have an official Cage rating system. And in this system, a perfect system in which you have never, ever forgotten a rank because, of course, you designed all the ranks, Broadcaster Nickels.
You're going to let me let that go, are you?
How could you ever forget a rank in which you have designed? And
I wrote it on a napkin in a 76 bathroom. All right.
On that system, Broadcaster Nickels, what do you rate Star Wars The Bad Batch?
You give it a solid rock.
Solid rock.
Like the deuce I took in the 76 gas station bathroom.
Like those commercials from the 90s. Like a rock.
Oh, like a rock.
Yeah, I'm going to give it a rock, too. I think we're pretty simpatico on this show, honestly. I think we almost have the exact same opinion, which is pretty rare. Usually we have a little bit of disagreement, but I feel like all of the things that you didn't like, I also didn't like, and all the things I did like, you also liked. So I think we're pretty much on the same page with this one. It's a good show, but it's flawed, but it has a lot of potential, and it could definitely all be fixed in season 2, so... We'll see where it goes, Broadcaster Nickels.
See where it goes.
And with that, we'll close out. Broadcaster Nickels, it's times like this that I'm reminded of the story of Icarus. And through that story, I'm also reminded of the story of Randy the Macho Man Savage. It could only be...
Two opposite stories, all right? Savage is the sun itself, okay?
And the vector between these two stories is a man abandoned, a baby abandoned in a Walmart parking lot in the rain, and that baby grew up to be Marvel's Moon Knight.
That's not an accurate description of my boy at all.